When I pushed the divorce settlement across the marble countertop, Caroline's eyes went wide, as if she were staring at some impossible mirage. You, you had this ready. Her voice was a wisp of air. I loosened my tie. I hadn't been home in a week, and now, standing in the grand entryway of the West Village brownstone we'd fought so hard to buy, our dream home, it felt as cold and impersonal as a hotel suite. Ever since I found out you bought Caleb Reed, that $100,000 watch, the color drained from her face. That was last month. She thought I didn't know. Ethan, it's not what you think. She shot to her feet, jostling the crystal vase on the coffee table. Caleb is just what? I cut her off, my voice unervingly calm. Just younger than your husband? More exciting? Or maybe... I picked up my phone and swiped to the photo. He's the one who can take you to that music festival you've been dying to go to, while I'm stuck at the office schmoozing clients until I can't see straight. The picture showed Caroline and Caleb at Coachella. She wore a flower crown in her hair, grinning like a college freshman. I'd seen it on Instagram last week, posted by one of her friends who must have forgotten to hide her stories from me. Caroline's lips trembled, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. Ethan, listen to me. Nothing happened between us. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. I swiped through a small gallery of photos I collected on my phone. You bought him a six-figure watch and a new sports car. You had a birthday dinner for two. You went to a music festival together. What else is there? Kissing? Sleeping together? I guess I should count myself lucky I found out when I did, before this got any more humiliating. She looked utterly defeated, sinking back onto the plush sofa. Ethan, have you ever stopped to think that maybe you're partially to blame for this? What did you just say? I couldn't believe my ears. Caroline, my gentle, sophisticated, reasonable Caroline, was spouting a line straight out of a trashy reality show. I admit I've been spending more time with Caleb lately, she said, her voice rising. But have you looked at yourself? The man I fell in love with was from a simple background, but he was brilliant. He was arrogant, sure, but he had principles. He wasn't afraid of anything. That's the man I asked out. But look at you now. You grovel and flatter for a business deal. You drink yourself into the hospital for a contract. You have no bottom line anymore. You used to take care of me. You were always there for me. Now you stumble in after midnight, and I'm the one who has to take care of you. Caleb, he's not like other guys. He looks a little like you, but his personality, it's exactly like the old you. So you're hanging out with him because he's like me? For Christ's sake, I'm not dead yet. I yelled, my eyes burning. But the man I knew is gone, she screamed back, louder than me, as if she were the one who had been wronged. You've changed. You sold your dignity for money. Why did you become this person? Her words plunged into my heart like a shard of ice. Why did I become this person? My mind flashed back 7 years. We were students at Columbia. She was the daughter of a Fortune 500 CEO. I was the scholarship kid from a working-class family who aced every class. I was cocky, quick to call out any injustice I saw, and I'd walk away from any situation I felt was unfair, no matter who I was dealing with. I guess that rebellious streak caught Caroline's eye. She started pursuing me, and since she was beautiful and brilliant, I didn't say no. My friends all said I was punching way above my weight, but I felt like the king of the world. She was incredible to me. My modest background didn't matter. For the rest of college, I never wanted for anything. My dorm mates joked that I reeked of smug, romantic bliss. With Caroline's support, I didn't have to work part-time jobs anymore. I spent my time in the lab with my professor, and by graduation, I had a portfolio of valuable patents. A top-tier tech firm came knocking before I even had my diploma. The CEO himself promised me that if I brought my patents to his company, his executive position would be mine in 5 years. I promised Caroline I'd marry her in a lavish ceremony within those 5 years. She just threw her arms around me and pulled me close. That night, she gave herself to me. My future was a blindingly bright horizon. But then, the unthinkable happened. Caroline's father made a disastrous investment in a new venture, and the company's capital chain snapped. In the digital age, news of trouble spreads like wildfire. Orders were canceled, projects ground to a halt. The pressure was too much. Her father jumped from his office building. When her mother heard the news, she had a massive stroke that left her partially paralyzed. I still remember that rainy night. Caroline stood outside my tiny apartment door, drenched, holding her younger sister's hand. They were shivering like two stray animals. My dad's company is going bankrupt, she sobbed, her eyes red and raw. I called everyone, family, friends, they're all avoiding me. Ethan, you're the only one who can help me now. Looking into her desperate eyes, I tore up my offer letter from the tech giant. The next day, I walked into the offices of her family's debt-ridden company, a place that couldn't even make payroll. To shield her from the fallout, I had her transfer ownership of the entire operation to me. From that day on, My life became a blur. I spent my days chasing down leads and my nights sleeping on the office couch. I did it because I saw Caroline, the carefree princess who used to buy whatever she wanted without a second thought, stand in front of a gourmet ice cream shop, stare at her favorite flavor, pull out her phone, and then put it away. She turned to me with a weak smile and said her period was coming, so she shouldn't eat anything cold. My heart felt like it was being pricked by 1,000 tiny needles. I swore to myself right then and there, I would kill myself working to give her that life back. From that day forward, I was a different person. To land one small contract, I got thrown out of a potential client's office, only to find his home address and show up on his doorstep with a gift basket. After what felt like the 100th time I knocked on his door, the guy didn't curse me out. He actually invited me in. His elderly father had just fallen down the stairs. Without a word, I helped him carry the old man to the car and drove them to the hospital. The client was swamped with his own work, and it took him 3 days to get back to the hospital. In that time, I stayed with his father, helping him with everything from changing bedpans to spoon-feeding him. When he saw how dedicated I was, he gave me a massive contract, no questions asked, and promised to be a loyal customer as long as we could deliver. That one deal was the lifeline that got the factory running again. It gave me the confidence to keep going. Client dinners, drinking until I had alcohol poisoning, groveling, it all became routine. Through sheer, shameless persistence, I dragged that company back from the brink of collapse. Those first 2 years were hell for Caroline and me. We were working around the clock and also taking care of her mother at the hospital. Her sister, Ashley, needed tuition for her studies abroad, and we made sure she had it, even if it meant we had to cut back on our own essentials. A young woman alone in a foreign country shouldn't have to struggle. But the hard work paid off. After 2 brutal years, the company was profitable again. That was the year Caroline and I finally got married. The thought of the family we would build, the kids we would have, settled a new weight on my shoulders, and I worked even harder. And now she looks down on me for having no dignity, for chasing money. Of course, she's living the good life again. She's no longer the girl crying in the rain, begging me for help. She's forgotten the shame of wanting something and knowing you can't afford it. Suddenly, my last 5 years of sacrifice felt like a colossal joke. All that groveling, all that grinding, what was it all for? But it didn't matter anymore. Her heart had strayed. I wasn't going to keep a woman who didn't want me. The divorce was happening. I'd been thinking about it all week, ever since I'd left the house. I spent 7 days in hell, feeling like a ghost. But I was through it now. I'd seen things clearly. I calmly picked up the settlement papers she'd thrown on the floor and pushed them back in front of her. Read it over. If there are no issues, sign it. We were getting a divorce. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she looked at me with an exasperated expression, as if I were the one being irrational. I'm not signing. You can fix this flaw of yours, and I won't hold it against you. I only feel pity for Caleb. You're the only one I love. I let out a cold laugh and shook my head. The only one she loved. She was blind to everything I'd done, yet Caleb murmurs a few sweet nothings, gives her a few handmade trinkets, and this heiress melts completely. You don't want me to go after him, do you? And by the way, everything you gave him was bought with our joint assets. His father has cancer and is in and out of the hospital. You paid off his $150,000 in loan shark debt. You've been footing his medical bills for months. If I decide to press the issue legally, he'll have to return every last cent. Hearing this, she looked at me as if I were a complete stranger. Ethan, how can you be so cruel? His family is already suffering so much. His sister is still in college. His dad has terminal cancer. If they stop treatment, he'll die. Can't you have some compassion? Why should I have compassion for a man who's trying to steal my wife? The world is full of sad stories. Go to any cancer ward, and you'll find people suffering. Why do you only feel sorry for him? We, she stammered, unable to answer, and tried to change the subject. Anyway, I'm not agreeing to a divorce. You're not thinking clearly today. Go take a shower, and I'll give you a massage to help you relax. You've been gone for so long. No thanks. I'm going back to my hotel. I turned and walked out, ignoring her calls behind me. I never expected her to sign today, but I had plenty of ways to make her. My years in the business world hadn't just made me smooth and resilient. They had forged my heart into something as hard as iron. As the old saying goes, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. If I couldn't be ruthless, I'd be the one who got crushed. If his father would die without the treatments, then he would just have to die. Back at the hotel, the first thing I did was cancel all of Caroline's credit cards. Then I instructed my lawyer to begin legal proceedings to reclaim all gifts and funds given to Caleb Reed. I blocked Caroline's number and gave myself a 2-week vacation. A private hospital's luxury suite doesn't let you stay a single day without payment. By the time I got back in 2 weeks, his funeral would probably be over. I'd been miserable for a week, so I decided to clear my head. I picked a place I'd always wanted to see, the national parks of southern Utah. I'd seen pictures, but they did no justice to the real thing. The unique, alien landscape of canyons and rock formations was a breathtaking testament to nature's power. Standing under a vast, silent sky, surrounded by ancient stone, the drama back in New York faded away. The 2 weeks flew by, and I realized I hadn't thought about Caroline once. When I returned to my office, the first thing I saw was Caroline, sitting in my chair, her face a thundercloud. "Caleb's father is dead," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "Are you happy now? Is that so? A real tragedy. Please accept my condolences," I said, sitting down on the sofa and casually sorting through a stack of documents my assistant had left. My tone was utterly devoid of emotion. "Ethan, how could you have turned into this? That was a human life. How could you?" He was on borrowed time anyway, living a few extra months on my money. "But don't thank me. That's a debt he'll have to repay to—" Caroline's face flushed with rage, her eyes practically shooting fire. "Fine. I know you love money more than anything. I'll find a way to pay you back." Her tone softened slightly. "Just leave Caleb alone and fix your own issues, and we can go back to how things were. You can come home tonight." It seemed she still thought this was just me throwing a tantrum. "I told you this marriage is over. You can keep refusing to sign. I can wait. I'm sure one day you'll come to me yourself." She closed her eyes, her chest heaving as she struggled to control her breathing. When she opened them again, her expression was one of grim determination. "As long as you leave him alone from now on, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. You can come home today. We can be like we were before." Seeing how far she was willing to go for Caleb, a dull ache throbbed in my chest, a heart I thought had gone numb. This was the woman I had loved for 7 years, the woman I would have died for, and her heart now belonged to someone else. I didn't let her continue. I had security escort her out of the building. If you care about him so much, then it's his sister's turn. I'd already had my people look into it. For the past few months, Caleb's sister, Chloe Reed, had been living it up at college. Caroline had been sending her a generous monthly allowance. Not only was she living lavishly herself, but she'd also picked up a handsome boyfriend and was covering all of his expenses. When I learned the truth, I had to laugh. I was killing myself to make money, and his entire family was sucking me dry like a pack of leeches. Well, we'd see just how easy my blood was to drink. With Caroline's accounts frozen, Chloe's allowance dried up. But after months of extravagant spending, not to mention a clingy boyfriend to support, she was desperate for cash. As luck would have it, a friend suggested an easy gig, working as a hostess at a high-end nightclub. But her boyfriend's needs also, coincidentally, seemed to grow. The money she made was never enough. After a little coaxing from her boss, Chloe started seeing clients on the side. She was attractive, and business was good. A few days later, photos and videos of her at work leaked online. She was arrested for solicitation, detained for a month, and fined $5,000. When she got out, she was expelled from college. With no other options, she went back to the club. As I expected, a few days later, Caroline found me. This time, she was completely unhinged, storming into my office and trashing the place. "Chloe was such a good student. You ruined her life. How could you be so cruel? I never saw this side of you," she shrieked amidst the wreckage. I sat calmly in my chair, waiting for her to burn herself out. "Well, you know now. We can finalize the divorce today." "Ethan, are you really so desperate to divorce me? I told you it's impossible. Don't even think about it." "Then I guess Caleb himself is next," I said, my voice quiet but laced with a terrifying coldness. "It's a shame. He only has 2 relatives left. I was hoping to save him for last." She knew I wasn't bluffing. After a long silence, she finally deflated like a punctured balloon and agreed to the divorce. The day we got the final decree, the sun was bright. Caroline was dressed beautifully. She walked slowly behind me, and I had to wait for her at the courthouse entrance. As she held the pen to sign the papers, she hesitated. "Do we really have to do this? Nothing ever happened between us." "But your heart changed, Caroline." Crossing that final line was only a matter of time. Seeing the resolve in my eyes, she signed her name, tears welling up. As we walked out of the building, she asked if I would cook for her one last time at the brownstone, for old time's sake. I refused. Instead, I took her to the little Italian restaurant in the village we used to frequent back in college. As a final gesture, I decided to give her a warning. I ordered our favorite dishes. The silence between us was heavy as we waited. "Caleb isn't who you think he is," I said, breaking the quiet. Her eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. "Ethan, I swear, there's nothing between us. I saw the old you in him." I held up a hand to stop her. I didn't want to hear her excuses. It didn't matter anymore. What's the most expensive gift he ever gave you in these past 3 months? Homemade cookies? A weirdly shaped rock? A little trinket made from a polished beer bottle? I changed the subject. Try this. Tell him you walked away with nothing in the divorce. See how he reacts. Caroline's expression shifted from confusion to disappointment. How did you know? Were you investigating us? But if you investigated us, you'd know nothing happened. I wasn't investigating you. I was investigating him. He's not some innocent kid fresh out of college. He was juggling multiple girls at the same time back on campus. He got through school not only without spending a dime, but he actually made a profit. His food, his clothes, his dates, the girls paid for everything. All he ever gave them were worthless handmade crafts. Seeing the conflict on her face, I knew words weren't enough. You have to show a person the truth. Here's what you do. I leaned in and whispered a plan in her ear. A week later, outside a luxury department store on 5th Avenue, Caleb Reed stood fidgeting in a cheap tracksuit, holding a bouquet of flowers and constantly checking his watch. Been waiting long? What was so important you had to call me here? Caroline said, walking up behind him. Caleb's face lit up. She was dressed to the gills, as stunning as ever, a world away from the other girls he'd dated. He swallowed hard and presented the flowers. For you, Caroline. Do you like them? She flinched at the use of her first name. He'd always called her that, and she used to find it endearing. Now it just felt wrong. What kind of flowers are these? I've never seen them in a shop. She took the bundle of scraggly branches wrapped in cheap, colorful paper. I was just back in my hometown yesterday, and I saw these flowers growing on a cliffside. They were so beautiful. I had to climb all the way up there just to pick them for you. Caleb's eyes roamed over her, a woman he'd been coveting for months. He'd heard she was divorced, and he'd rushed back to the city overnight to seal the deal with this beautiful, wealthy prize. Today was the day he was going to make his move. Lost in his excitement, he didn't seem to notice the lack of joy on her face. Well, that's thoughtful of you. She looked at the pathetic little white flowers on the branches. Tossing them would be rude, but carrying them around was embarrassing. She decided to put them in her car, and then meet him back on the street. So, what did you want to see me about today? Caleb paused, seeming to finally notice that she was different. In the past, she'd never asked for a reason when he invited her out. And whenever they were shopping, she'd buy him anything he liked. Oh, no reason. I just hadn't seen you in a few days and wanted to hang out. As they spoke, they wandered into a high-end watch boutique. Caleb casually asked the clerk to show him a very expensive model and slipped it onto his wrist. Caroline, what do you think of this one? It looks great on me, don't you think? He held his wrist out to her, his face beaming with the innocent avarice of a child demanding a toy. Honestly, the watch didn't suit him at all. His wrist was thin, but the watch face was enormous. It was also incredibly expensive. I already bought you a watch, Caroline said coolly. You're just a medical resident. You can't be wearing a watch nicer than the chief of surgeries. Caleb's smile froze. This was the first time she had ever denied him anything. Before, all he had to do was express a desire for something, and she would buy it. Oh, right. I was just trying on, he mumbled, his expression a mix of disappointment and resentment. In the past, one look at that face, so much like a younger Ethan's, and she would have given him anything. As a recent graduate, Caleb's social awkwardness had only fed her delusion that he was the real Ethan, while her husband had become a stranger. But after Ethan had revealed Caleb's past, she realized she didn't know him at all. And it was true. Every time they met, she was the one paying for everything. He'd never even bought her a cup of coffee, and she had divorced her husband to defend this man. After a few days of reflection, regret had been steadily growing. Caleb, she said, her voice firm, you probably heard I got divorced. But what you might not know is that I walked away with nothing. From now on, I probably can't. What? Caleb exploded before she could finish. How could you be so stupid? Why would you agree to that? Marital assets are supposed to be split 50-50. The company was your family's before you even married him. You should have just given him a payout. He was the one mooching off your family's business. You should feel lucky you gave him anything at all. His face, usually so harmless, twisted into an ugly mask of rage. It was as if Ethan had stolen his money. Caroline watched him, a cold clarity dawning. Similar outbursts had happened before, but she had always mistaken his greed for concern for her. Now she saw it for what it was. This was between Ethan and me, she said coldly. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. How can you say that? Caleb blurted out, forgetting himself. That was your family's company, your money. If you gave it all to him, how are we supposed to live? We? Live? What are you talking about? Caroline frowned, her gaze sharp. Since he'd let the cat out of the bag, Caleb decided to go all in. So what if she was broke? She was still a goddess. Just one night with a woman like this would be worth it. Besides, he wasn't about to let Ethan off the hook. If he and Caroline got together, he'd make a huge scene at Ethan's company, plaster the internet with stories about how Ethan was a gold digger who seized his wife's assets and then dumped her. If he could force a settlement for even a fraction of the company, he'd be set for life. Caroline, after all this time, you must know how I feel about you. That bastard Ethan doesn't appreciate you, but I will. I asked you here today to tell you. Caroline Pierce, I love you. Be my girlfriend. Caroline was dumbfounded. Before she could even process what was happening, the onlookers who had gathered started murmuring. Is he serious? Proposing with empty hands, right? For a woman that beautiful, you'd think he'd at least have a ring. He's just using his words. He's surrounded by jewelry stores. He could buy one right now. Caleb, hearing the crowd, finally got the hint. He grabbed Caroline's hand and pulled her into a nearby jeweler. Without even asking her, he told the salesperson to bring out their most expensive rings. He didn't know a thing about jewelry, but he knew one rule. When in doubt, pick the biggest and most expensive. He glanced at the rings on the velvet tray, picked the priciest one, and was about to drop to one knee. "Excuse me, sir," the saleswoman said politely. "If you've made your selection, could you please settle the payment first?" Caleb was furious that his grand moment had been interrupted. "I know. We're regulars here. You think we're going to stiff you for this? Caroline, pay her." His words stunned not only Caroline but the entire crowd. Who asked the woman to pay for her own engagement ring? A wave of disdainful looks was directed his way. "I just told you," Caroline said, her voice dangerously low. "I walked away with nothing. How could I possibly afford a ring like this? Though with all the money I've given you over the last few months, you should have no problem buying it yourself." She had never intended to say yes, but now she saw his true character with blinding clarity. He called Ethan a gold digger, but it was clear he was the one looking for a meal ticket. That money is for other things," he stammered. "When we move into your mansion, I was planning on redecorating it to my taste. And anyway, diamond rings are just a scam by capitalists. I'll make you a one-of-a-kind ring myself when we get home." With that, he tossed the ring onto the glass counter. The saleswoman gasped and quickly snatched it up to check for damage. Relieved it wasn't chipped, she couldn't help but snipe. Marriage is a lifelong commitment. If you end up with a penny pincher, you're in for a miserable life. Caroline had never been so humiliated. Her face flushed red. "Caleb, I think you've misunderstood. I have always thought of you as a younger brother. Don't contact me again." She turned and walked away. Caleb, left alone, took his anger out on the saleswoman, screaming and throwing a tantrum in the middle of the store like a petulant child. From that day on, Caroline was a changed woman. She started coming to my office every day, dressed impeccably, bringing me home-cooked meals. She knew my habits perfectly. A cup of tea at just the right temperature would appear when I was thirsty. A small plate of my favorite pastries would materialize when I was tired and stressed. It was a habit from our hardest times. I'd eat something sweet to take the edge off, and she'd learn to be an amazing cook and baker just for me. I tried to tell her to stop, but she'd just smile and say, "I still own half this company." After a few attempts, I gave up. As long as she didn't bother me, she could do what she wanted. Then, one morning, I got a text from her. "Hey, I have something to take care of today, so I won't be at the office. Don't forget to eat lunch." I didn't wonder what she was up to. In fact, the day was more relaxing without her there, fussing over me not to drink cold water or eat greasy food. That evening, as I was leaving work, she called me. "Ethan, I twisted my ankle coming down the stairs. Can you come take me to the hospital? If you twisted your ankle, call 911. I'm not a doctor." Just as I was about to hang up, I heard her start to cry. "I twisted both of them. I can't even walk at the hospital. Please, for the sake of..." "Fine, I'm on my way." When I got to her place, I found her perfectly fine, cooking in the kitchen. When she saw me, she rushed out, spatula in hand. "Make yourself at home. Dinner's almost ready." What the hell was this? What happened to the twisted ankles? Sure enough, a few minutes later, the table was laden with all of my favorite dishes. Caroline looked at me with a gentle expression, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the girl whose eyes used to hold nothing but me. "Ethan, do you know what day it is?" she asked, placing a piece of braised pork on my plate. "No. And didn't you say you? Would you have come if I hadn't said that? It's the anniversary of the day I first told you I loved you. So I'm telling you again. I love you, Ethan. Please give me another chance." "Caroline, it's over between us. If you keep this up, we can't even be friends." I stood up to leave. She grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, I know I was wrong, but I swear, nothing happened with Caleb. It was just because he was so much like you, like the proud, arrogant you from the past. That's why I..." Because he was like my past self? You could do all that for him? There are over 7 billion people in the world. There must be thousands who look and act like I used to. Does that mean if we get back together, I have to compete with all of them? No, Ethan, that's not it. I held up my hand. Let me finish. You said I changed. But why did I change? You knew before I joined the company that I had a golden ticket, a job offer that guaranteed a brilliant future. The image of you and your sister, drenched in the rain that night, was burned into my soul. I swore that day I would protect you both, that I would never let you get caught in the rain again. Do you know what it's like for a proud man to grovel? To knock on a stranger's door, get cursed out, and then come back the next day to be cursed out again, dozens of times just to sign one deal? Sometimes I felt so disgusted with myself. I couldn't show you my pain because I was afraid of making you sad. So I'd find an empty parking lot and just cry my eyes out before I could go home. I became the exact person I used to despise. Do you have any idea how much that broke me? But our lives got better. Your sister is about to graduate and come home. You became a wealthy woman again, with anything you could ever want. And the thing that finally shattered me? The woman I loved with all my heart, the woman I would have died for, looked down on me for it. Caroline, anyone in the world can look down on me. Anyone, but not you. My voice was raw with emotion. With the last word, I swept my arm across the table, sending dishes and glasses crashing to the floor. The dining room was a ruin. I walked out without looking back. Caroline sank to the floor, her face blank, tears flowing silently down her cheeks. After that night, she stopped coming to the office. My life reverted to its chaotic rhythm of late nights and client dinners. One evening, after downing a glass of whiskey, my stomach churned and the world went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. Water. I croaked, my throat parched. Water. Here you go. Thanks. I took the cup and drank greedily. When my vision cleared and I saw who was holding it, the second half of my thank you died in my throat. What are you doing here? I thought we made things clear. Brother-in-law. It's me. Ashley. The woman across from me beamed. Ashley? When did you get back? I looked closer. She did look different from Caroline, though they were cut from the same mold. Ashley was more vibrant, while Caroline was more poised and elegant. I graduated, so I came home. Oh, and by the way, I don't have a job yet. I'll just start at your company tomorrow, okay? She casually arranged her future without waiting for an answer. Ashley, your sister and I are divorced. You shouldn't call me brother-in-law anymore. As for the job, just report to HR tomorrow. You can have any position you want. I'd always had a soft spot for her ever since I started dating Caroline, always trying to give her whatever she asked for. Okay, Ethan, but I'll stay here and take care of you until you're discharged. Then we can go to the office together. She launched into stories about her time studying abroad, how she had to learn to do everything herself because it was too expensive to hire help and too unsafe to let strangers into her apartment. She was surprisingly good at taking care of people, and her cheerful chatter was a welcome distraction. 2 days later, I was discharged. On Ashley's first day of work, she got a call from the police. Her sister, Caroline, had been involved in a fatal accident. We rushed to the police station. In a holding cell, Caroline looked like she was in a state of profound shock. Ashley ran to comfort her while I went to talk to the detective. It turned out Caleb had been harassing Caroline relentlessly. After she'd cut him off, he tried to find another wealthy benefactor. But his calculating nature always shone through. Women would use him and discard him without giving him a cent. He started to miss how good he'd had it with Caroline and began staking out her home, showing up every day with hand-picked wildflowers to profess his love. She had called building security on him multiple times, so he started waiting for her just outside the complex gates. Earlier that day, he was there again, his eyes glued to the entrance. When a familiar red Ferrari pulled out, he darted in front of it. Caroline didn't have time to react. The car hit him and rolled over him. A terrible scream. Panicked, Caroline slammed the car into reverse, running over him again. Another scream. In a fresh wave of terror, her hand slipped, and she shifted back into drive, lurching forward over his body one more time. This happened over and over again. After a dozen times, Caleb Reed finally fell silent. Caroline came to her senses, got out of the car, looked at the scene, and called 911. The investigation concluded that while the first impact might have been an accident, the subsequent ones were difficult to justify as such. She was convicted of manslaughter, due to the victim's history of harassment being a mitigating factor, but the horrific nature of the act being an aggravating one. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. For the first 3 years, Ashley and I visited her every month. Caroline would tell Ashley to take good care of me, saying how hard it was for a man to work and build a business. The 4th year, I went alone. Ashley was pregnant. When I told Caroline, Her expression was a complex mixture of emotions, but in the end, she wished us happiness. A year later, Ashley gave birth to twin boys. It was around the same time Caroline was due to be released. At the boys' 1-month celebration, she was there. She held them in her arms, her eyes full of adoration. "How about your Annie takes care of you from now on?" And so, she moved into our villa to help us raise the children. She was an excellent cook and a natural caregiver. With her there, Ashley and I could focus on our work, our minds at ease.